There is a reason why some things and some people are never discounted. Why certain names make rooms fall silent. Why some individuals command attention without ever raising their voices. These are not accidents of birth or moments of luck. They are the deliberate outcomes of internal alignment, of understanding one's worth, guarding one's energy, and moving through the world with intentionality. To carry yourself like a luxury brand is not about external displays of wealth. It is a psychological stance, a quiet power, a refusal to be anything less than your truest, highest self. Every moment, every day. Today I will walk you through 5 keys to embodying this rare presence. Not to impress others, but to express what already exists within you, waiting to be awakened. To know your value is not simply to think highly of yourself. It is to stand in quiet recognition of a truth so deep it cannot be shaken by opinion, circumstance, or even failure. It is to remember that your existence is not random, that your essence carries weight, meaning, and potential that no one else can replicate. In a world that is constantly trying to define you, by numbers, by roles, by likes and titles, you must resist the temptation to shrink into those narrow frames. You are not here to fit in, you are here to be whole. Luxury does not explain itself, it does not shout its presence, nor does it compete in chaos. It simply is. Its confidence lies not in the noise it makes, but in the depth of its substance. And so it must be with you. If you walk into a room unsure of your value, you will find yourself bending to try to earn approval that was never meant to be currency in the first place. But when you walk in knowing that your presence is a gift, not a request, you carry an invisible armor, one that commands respect without needing to demand it. The most expensive things are not the loudest. A handcrafted watch ticking in silence has more power than a plastic toy that sings. True worth doesn't chase attention, it draws it. The same applies to you. When you live from a place of knowing who you are, you do not need to convince anyone. People may misunderstand you. They may underestimate you. Let them. Their misjudgment is not your concern. It is their limitation. Oprah Winfrey's story illustrates this truth with clarity. When she began her career, she was told she wasn't fit for television, that she didn't look the part, that she didn't have the voice. The mold of the industry did not recognize her. But instead of breaking herself to fit into it, she built her own path. She didn't shout, she didn't argue, she simply became undeniable. Her presence spoke for her, and what was once seen as a disadvantage, her vulnerability, her authenticity, became the very qualities that redefine the meaning of influence. That is the power of self-worth. Not the noise of reaction, but the stillness of being. To truly know your value, you must also be willing to lose what does not recognize it. This is not easy. Sometimes you will have to walk away from people you love, jobs you've invested in, or opportunities that glitter but don't honor your truth. It will feel like a sacrifice, but it is actually self-preservation. What you walk away from is not the loss. The real loss is who you would become if you stayed. There is nothing noble about making yourself small so others feel comfortable. You are not responsible for their insecurity. You are responsible for your own growth. Knowing your worth is not arrogance. It is rooted in humility because it requires deep introspection. It asks you to look within and see not just your light, but also your wounds, and love yourself anyway. To know your value is not to inflate your ego, but to affirm your essence. You begin to live not for applause, but for alignment, not for attention, but for authenticity. And perhaps most importantly, when you know your value, you begin to see it in others too. You no longer need to compete, because you understand that each soul carries its own unique imprint. You become generous with praise, firm with boundaries, and free from the prison of comparison. The success of others does not threaten you, it inspires you, because you no longer see life as a hierarchy, but as a vast landscape where everyone has a place. So if ever you find yourself doubting your worth, remember this: the stars don't shine by seeking permission. They shine because that is what they were made to do. And so were you. You are not here to be explained. You are here to be experienced. Let your energy, your truth, your quiet confidence speak in ways words never can. And above all, never apologize for who you are when you are being honest, kind, and whole. That is your true luxury, and it cannot be discounted. In a world that constantly demands more access, more presence, more availability, there lies a deep and often forgotten truth. What is rare becomes sacred. What is overexposed becomes ordinary. And what is given too freely is too easily taken for granted. You are no exception to this law. If you are constantly offering your time, your attention, your emotional labor to everything and everyone that asks, you will begin to feel an erosion within, a quiet emptiness. A sense that something vital is leaking from your soul. That is not because you are not enough. It is because you are not choosing carefully enough where to place your energy. To become someone of value, you must understand that your energy is currency, and just like any precious resource, its value depends on its scarcity and its purpose. You cannot be everywhere and mean something. You cannot say yes to all things and still have a powerful no. When you give yourself indiscriminately, you send the message, not just to others, but to yourself, that your presence is cheap, your time is expendable, and your essence is easily accessed. But when you become selective, when you guard your inner space like the sacred ground it is, a transformation occurs. You are no longer at the mercy of the world. You begin to shape the world around you. There is a story, deceptively simple but profoundly true. A man once stood in the middle of a crowded market and offered a string of beautiful pearls for free. People walked past him with little interest. Some glanced, some scoffed, but most simply ignored. The next day he placed those same pearls behind a velvet rope in a glass case with a high price tag, and suddenly a line formed. People came with curiosity, admiration, even reverence. But what changed? Not the pearls. The pearls were the same. What changed was the context, the message of value. When something is given too easily, it's assumed to be unworthy. When it is protected, positioned, and limited, it commands a different kind of respect. And so it is with you. If you offer yourself without boundaries, you train people to expect you without effort. They begin to assume you will always answer, always fix, always show up, even at the cost of your own well-being. And over time, you lose the power to surprise, to influence, to truly matter. Because what is always available is rarely appreciated, and what is rare is remembered. Being selective with your energy does not mean being cold, it means being conscious. It means understanding the difference between generosity and self-sacrifice. You were not born to be drained by every demand that knocks on your door. You were born to create, to love deeply, to contribute meaningfully, and none of that can happen if you are constantly depleted by people and problems that do not deserve the weight of your attention. To live this way, you must be willing to disappoint others. You must be willing to say no without long explanations, to exit conversations that go nowhere, to walk away from relationships that consume more than they contribute. And you must do so not with bitterness, but with clarity. You are not judging them, you are protecting your fire, and when you protect your fire, it grows brighter, not just for you, but for those who truly need your warmth. The world will not give you permission to do this. In fact, it will resist it. It will call you selfish, arrogant, distant. But those voices come from those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to your soul, and your soul knows when it's being honored or when it's being drained. It is tempting to think that being liked, being seen, being accessible makes us valuable. But this is a trap. You are not here to be consumed, you are here to be experienced. And for that to happen, your presence must carry weight, not just visibility, but meaning. And meaning only arises when it is wrapped in intention, in purpose, in discernment. So begin to ask yourself, who gets my attention? What environments drain me? What patterns leave me feeling less than I am? Begin to draw lines, not as walls, but as sacred gates. Let your yes be sacred, your no be final, and your presence be earned, not because you are better, but because you are worth it. Because the more you honor your energy, the more others will too. Your essence is not infinite, but it is powerful. Treat it like the rarest pearl, and never again offer it on the street. There is a presence that speaks before words are ever spoken. It arrives before you enter the room. It lingers after you leave. It is not created by chance, nor is it the product of trends or mimicry. It is the signature you etch into the world through the consistency of your being. To craft such a presence is not about vanity or surface-level polish. It is about aligning your external self with the depth and truth of your inner world. The most powerful individuals are not those who shout the loudest or shine the brightest in fleeting moments, but those whose very being whispers of depth, clarity, and purpose. In a world overwhelmed by noise, where countless voices compete for attention, true presence is rare, and what is rare becomes powerful. Consider how quickly we recognize certain names, symbols, or energies, not because they've saturated our senses, but because they've remained unwavering in their identity. A luxury brand does not adjust itself for the masses. It doesn't seek to belong in every store, on every shelf, in every crowd. It refines itself. It simplifies, distills, and elevates its core message until even its silence speaks volumes. This is how you must think of yourself, not as a product but as an identity, carved slowly through self-awareness, discipline, and intention. Your presence is your message to the world. Every gesture, every glance, every word carries the tone of your internal state. When you speak with calm assurance, when your posture reflects stillness rather than anxiety, when your energy is deliberate and contained, people feel it before they can name it. They may not understand why they respect you or listen to you, they simply do. It is not the volume of your voice, but the weight of your silence, not the complexity of your words, but the clarity of your essence. There's a story told of a woman who walked into a room full of powerful men. She said very little, but all heads turned. Her presence was composed, unbothered, fully rooted in who she was. Later, someone asked her what her secret was. She said, "I do not enter a room to be seen. I enter as if I belong." That is the essence of a signature presence. It does not seek permission, it does not need validation, it simply is firm, quiet, and unmistakable. But this is not something you stumble into, it is something cultivated through inner work. It requires you to become intimate with your fears, your desires, your contradictions, to know what energizes you and what drains you, to refine your communication, not just in tone but in timing, to carry yourself not as a reaction to the world, but as an expression of your truth. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. Think of how Nelson Mandela emerged from prison after 27 years. He did not storm out with rage, though he had every reason to. He walked with calm, with grace, with a quiet power that reshaped the energy of an entire nation. His presence had been forged in solitude, through suffering, through years of confrontation with the self. And when he emerged, he did not need to command respect. It followed him like a shadow. This is the power of a cultivated presence. It cannot be given, It must be earned through deep self-mastery. In contrast, observe those who constantly chase attention, who try on different masks for different crowds, who mimic the language of confidence without the depth beneath it. Their presence is not lasting. It may impress for a moment, but it fades quickly because it lacks the roots of authenticity. To be truly magnetic, you must stop reaching outward and begin grounding inward. Who are you when no one is watching? What values govern your decisions? What emotional climate do you bring into a room? Presence is not posture alone, though posture matters. It is not style alone, though style speaks. It is the invisible thread that runs through all your expressions, a consistency between who you are, what you believe, and how you move. When these things align, you become undeniable. You do not need to convince, you do not need to argue, you become a reference point for something others didn't know they were seeking. In an age of imitation, to be original is to be powerful, but originality is not loud, it is not shocking, it is quiet certainty in one's essence. That is your true luxury, not your clothes, your career or your status, but the calm command of someone who knows who they are and doesn't need the world to agree. Cultivate this, live it, and you will not only be remembered, you will be felt. To carry yourself with the aura of a luxury brand, you must understand that true distinction arises not from how the world sees you, but from how deeply you have come to know and refine yourself. The surface may impress, but it is the substance beneath that leaves a lasting imprint. The world may be captivated momentarily by glitter, but it is always drawn back to gravity. And gravity comes from depth. It comes from a soul that has been shaped not by applause, but by silence. Not by convenience, but by confrontation with the self. There is a misconception that to be magnetic, one must focus on the external, the right words, the right clothing, the right associations, but this is a fragile illusion. These things, when detached from inner substance, are merely decoration on an empty vessel. Real presence, lasting influence, and quiet power are born from within, from a self that has been polished not for display, but for clarity. Just as a luxury watch is not revered for its outer shine, but for the precision of its internal mechanics, so too must you seek to refine what is hidden, what is private, what is seen only by you. To do this requires courage. It is far easier to sculpt an image than it is to sculpt the soul. To invest in inner refinement means choosing to look inward when things fall apart, instead of blaming the world. It means confronting the pain that you have buried, the patterns that sabotage you, and the beliefs that no longer serve you. These internal shadows do not dissolve through avoidance. They dissolve only when they are acknowledged, accepted, and integrated into a new understanding of the self. This is not indulgent, it is essential, because every unexamined wound becomes a silent puppet master, pulling the strings of your reactions, your relationships, your sense of identity. If you do not face your pain, you will project it. If you do not understand your anger, you will leak it into conversations, decisions, and moments meant for peace. If you do not heal, you will harm not only others, but yourself again and again, in increasingly subtle and sophisticated ways. Refinement, then, is not a matter of aesthetics, it is a matter of liberation. And it is through this process that emotional intelligence is born. Emotional intelligence is not softness, it is not simply being nice or agreeable. It is the strength to remain grounded in a storm. It is the ability to read your own inner climate so well that you can navigate the storms of others without getting lost in them. Studies have shown that people with higher emotional intelligence are seen as more trustworthy, more charismatic, more effective in leadership and relationship. This is not because they are perfect, but because they are present. Present with their own emotions and present with the emotional reality of others. They do not react blindly, they respond consciously. And in a world that is increasingly chaotic and reactive, this quality is not just rare, it is regal. But emotional intelligence is not something we are born with. It is something we build, piece by piece, moment by moment, choice by choice. Through journaling, we begin to untangle the chaos of thought and uncover patterns that hold us hostage. Through therapy or deep conversation, we begin to speak truths that have remained buried for years, releasing the weight we didn't know we were carrying. Through meditation, we train ourselves to sit still with discomfort, to witness rather than flee, to observe the tides of thought without being swept away. These practices are not luxuries, they are disciplines. They are the quiet rituals through which we polish the mirror of the soul, so that when we look within, we no longer see confusion, we see clarity. You may not see the results immediately. Inner refinement does not come with applause or instant validation. In fact, at times it may feel lonely, even thankless. But over time, something remarkable happens. You stop seeking constant reassurance. You stop mimicking others to gain acceptance. You stop shrinking to fit into places that were never meant for you. Instead, you begin to radiate a different frequency, one of wholeness, steadiness, and quiet certainty. Others may not be able to name what they feel around you, but they will feel it. A groundedness, a resonance, a sense of peace that is both rare and irresistible. This is the mark of someone who has invested deeply in their inner world. And when the inner is rich, the outer follows. Not in excess, but in elegance. Not in noise, but in nuance. You no longer need to prove yourself. Your very presence does the speaking, and not because you have become someone else, but because you have finally become yourself. There is a force more powerful than noise, more commanding than charisma, more unsettling than anger, and that is silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness, a deliberate, conscious restraint that emanates strength. In a world that is addicted to the performance of identity, where every second demands a reaction, an opinion, a post, a reply, silence has become one of the rarest and therefore most luxurious human qualities. To be silent is not to be passive. It is to hold your center while the world pulls at you from all directions. It is to resist the temptation to prove, to fight, to explain, and instead, to be. We live in an age where visibility is confused with value, where those who shout the loudest are often mistaken for those who carry the most truth. But truth rarely screams. Truth waits. It rests in the quiet confidence of someone who knows that their worth does not depend on being constantly seen or heard. When you understand this, you begin to withdraw from the madness of urgency. You realize that rushing to respond is often a sign of inner instability, that defending yourself at every turn is a symptom of deep insecurity, and that silence, when chosen, is not retreat, it is mastery. The power of silence lies in its ability to disrupt the expected. When people speak, they often anticipate resistance or agreement, but when you offer neither, when you simply hold your space without reaction, it creates a mirror, one in which others are forced to confront their own words, motives, and projections. And in that space, truth rises. Consider a conversation where someone attacks you, criticizes you, or challenges you unjustly. The reflex is to defend, to explain, to fight back. But what if you said nothing? What if your eyes remained calm, your voice steady, or completely still? In that moment, your silence becomes a wall they cannot climb, a depth they cannot measure. You no longer dance to the rhythm of their chaos. You create your own rhythm, and they must choose whether to find their way into it or fall away. This is not about manipulation, it is about containment. To contain your energy is to claim your power. Most people leak their energy through unnecessary reactions, impulsive responses, and the need to be constantly understood. But when you stop needing to be right, you start becoming real, and reality does not beg for recognition, it simply exists. That is the essence of silence. It is not empty, it is full of awareness, patience, and strength. Think of the great minds, the wise leaders, the individuals who move the world with quiet authority. They do not waste their words, they do not announce every move, they do not clamor for attention. They arrive, they observe, and they choose their moments with precision. Keanu Reeves is a contemporary example of this kind of presence. He is not a man of spectacle, yet he is universally respected. He is not known for speeches, but for stillness. He does not impose himself, he offers himself. And in doing so he draws more admiration than those who perform constantly. His silence is not an absence, it is a presence so complete it needs no explanation. In silence we find clarity, not just about others but about ourselves. When we are not reacting, we begin to see. We begin to notice the motives behind our impulses, the shadows beneath our pride, the insecurities behind our need to be heard. In silence, ego loses its grip. In silence, we remember what truly matters. This is why moments of stillness, whether through meditation, solitude, or simply holding your tongue, are not luxuries. They are necessities for a life of substance. It is important to distinguish between silence that is born of fear and silence that is born of strength. The former hides, the latter contains. The former avoids conflict, the latter transcends it. The former is a cage, the latter is a fortress. To cultivate the latter, you must first become intimate with yourself. You must confront your own noise, the internal chatter, the unprocessed emotions, the fear of being invisible. And when you do, you begin to understand that silence is not a void, but a vessel, one that holds everything essential and filters out everything that isn't. Those who live with depth do not rush to fill the silence. They sit with it. They listen. They allow space for intuition, for deeper insight, for truth to emerge on its own terms. They understand that not everything needs to be said, and certainly not right away. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer the world is your restraint. Sometimes your silence will say what no words ever could. And so, to walk through life with the poise of a luxury brand, with timelessness, grace, and quiet dignity, you must become fluent in silence, not as absence, but as language. A language that speaks in stillness, listens with presence, and moves only when movement has meaning. When you master this language, you will find that people listen to you more when you speak less, not because of the words you use, but because of the silence you have mastered. To carry yourself like a luxury brand is not to become something you're not, but to finally become who you were always meant to be: quiet, confident, rare. You are not here to blend in. You are here to be known, not by many, but by the right ones, and to be remembered, not for what you had, but for how you carried yourself when no one was watching. So walk not with noise, but with meaning. Be less accessible, be more aligned, and never forget, the most exquisite souls don't chase attention, they become it.